is going on YouTube? My name is Nick, and welcome back to the Good Schmidt podcast. Today is episode 6, and I'm going to be recapping the divisional round of the NFL playoffs, as well as giving a preview for the AFC and NFC championship games. So let's start with the first game of this past weekend, where the San Francisco 49ers took out the Minnesota Vikings 27 to 10. So let's take a look at how they did so. So in the first quarter, Minnesota started out with a 3-and-out, and then San Francisco scored a touchdown. Jimmy Garoppolo threw a 3-yard touchdown pass to Bourne. And then Minnesota answered right back with a 7-play drive. Kirk Cousins throwing a 41-yard touchdown pass to Stephon Diggs, tying the score at 7. And then we had a couple of punts, and then San Francisco scored a touchdown early on in the second, early on in the second quarter. Tevin Coleman with a 1-yard run to make it 14 to 7. Then the Vikings had another punt. Then an interception thrown by the 49ers, and Minnesota ended up kicking a field goal, making it 14 to 10. The Vikings were still in this game. So what did San Francisco do in the second half to take out the lead? So to start off the third quarter, Robbie Gould nailed a 35-yard field goal, and then Minnesota threw an interception, which led it to a Tevin Coleman 2-yard touchdown run, his second of the day. And then a couple of punts, and another field goal by Robbie Gould to make it 27 to 10. And then a punt by the Vikings, and then some punts traded in the fourth quarter. The Niners ended up fumbling, and that was pretty much the game. So that interception sealed it for the Vikings, pretty much. That pretty much sealed it. And San Francisco would go on to win. Let's take a look at the stats here. Starting with the Vikings. Kirk Cousins, pretty efficient on the day, 21 for 29, 172 yards, a touchdown, and he did have that interception, which ended up costing his team. They did not run the ball very effectively at all. Only 9 carries and 18 yards for Dalvin Cook. Alexander Madison only had 1 carry. And then Stephon Diggs, he got another head scratcher. Only 2 targets. He did have that 1 touchdown, but only 2 targets for Diggs. Thielen had 5 receptions on 50 yards. Or no, only 2 receptions, I should say, for Diggs on 5 targets. And then Irv Smith had 3 receptions for 39 yards. He had a couple of fumbles by Marcus Sherrills. He ended up fumbling a kickoff there. That was very costly. So 2 costly turnovers for the Vikings in this game. Anthony Barr forced a fumble in this game and also recovered a fumble. That was late in the game. Eric Kendricks had the interception on Jimmy Garoppolo. Had a couple of pat downs by Xavier Rhodes and Trey Waynes. And then the leading tacklers for the Vikings were Eric Wilson with 7, Anthony Barr with 6, and Linval Joseph with 5. And Daniil Hunter had a sack. Stephen Weatherly had a sack, and that is it for sacks. Dan Bailey had a field goal. There's punting, kickoffs, and punt returns, the rest of the special teams. So as far as this game goes, Minnesota with that interception and fumble on a kickoff ultimately cost them in this game. They were outmatched by San Francisco ultimately. Let's take a look at what they did statistical wise. And I didn't look at the team stats. We'll come back to those at the end. I might have to look at those first. So Jimmy Garoppolo did enough. He was adequate, like I said he needed to be in the preview. 11 for 19, 131 yards, touchdown and an interception. Not a very good one at that. Tevin Coleman rushed for 100 yards with 2 touchdowns, so he made a huge impact on this game. He did average 4.8 yards a carry on his 22 carries, so that was huge. Raheem Mostert also chipped in with 58 yards on the ground. And then as far as receiving goes, leading receiver for the Niners was Deebo Samuel, actually. He had 3 catches for 42 yards. Bourne had 3 catches for 40. Sanders 2 for 33, and George Kittle 3 for 16. As far as fumbles go, Matt Breida fumbled, and he ended up losing it. Raheem Mostert covered a fumble, and also Dre Greenlaw forced a fumble. Richard Sherman had the interception for San Francisco, and then we had 2 pat downs by Emmanuel Mosley and 1 by Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa led the Niners with tackles with 6. He also had 2 sacks and 2 TFLs, so huge game from Nick. Mosley had 5 tackles. Fred Warner had 4. Let's see, Solomon Thomas also had a sack. Eric Armstead had 1. DeForest Buckner, D. Ford. So sacks all over the board for San Francisco. Robbie Gould hit on both of his field goals and all of his extra points. There's punting and there is kickoff returns. Let's take a look at the team stats, and then I'll give my final thoughts on this game. I think I already kind of did, but I'll give quick final thoughts on this game. Where do the team stats go? That's highlights. Hold on, guys. Actually, yeah, I'll give my. So ultimately, San Francisco was just capitalized more on Minnesota's mistakes. I think that was the key to this game, and that was the reason they won. Minnesota could not get anything going in the second half off of the stiff 49er defense, and that is what is going to propel San Francisco to the NFC Championship game. All right, transitioning to the second game of the weekend, where we had an upset. The Tennessee Titans slayed the Baltimore Ravens 28-12. Let's take a look at what happened in this game. It was pretty wild. So to start off the game in the first quarter, we had an interception on Baltimore's first drive, and Tennessee drove down the field and scored a touchdown. Ryan Tannehill with a 12-yard touchdown strike to Jonnu Smith, who made an amazing one-handed catch. Go check that out after this video. That was an amazing catch. Just go look it up on YouTube. Jonnu Smith one-handed catch in the AFC Divisional game. And then the Ravens went for it on 4th and 1, turned it over on downs. That was a crucial mistake because Tennessee again capitalized off of their mistake. Ryan Tannehill throwing a 45-yard touchdown bomb on the very next play, taking 8 seconds. That was pretty insane. Then each team traded a punt. The Ravens finally got on the board with a 49-yard field goal by Justin Tucker. Then another punt by Tennessee. And another field goal for the Ravens. So a huge stop there for Tennessee, keeping them out of the end zone. Then in the third quarter, again, Baltimore decides to go for it on 4th down and could not get it. And guess what happened? The Titans ended up scoring another touchdown. And this time, it was Derrick Henry throwing a 3-yard jump pass to Corey Davis. So that was pretty cool. And then the Ravens fumbled, and guess what happened? Another touchdown. Ryan Tannehill runs in a touchdown, making it 28-6. And then there was another interception by the Ravens, and that was all the scoring that was all the scoring the Titans would need, even though Baltimore would add another touchdown in garbage time to make it 28-12. That would be it. Let's take a look here at the individual stats for each team, starting with the Titans. Ryan Tannehill, 7 for 14, 88 yards and 2 touchdowns, so pretty efficient day with his 50% completion percentage and throwing 2 touchdowns. He didn't even need to throw 100 yards, and we'll get to why. It's pretty obvious why, based on what happened last week. They used the same formula. So, and Derrick Henry also had that jump pass. Derrick Henry again had a huge game. He somehow topped his performance from the wildcard game against New England. He had 30 carries for 195 yards. He didn't score a touchdown, but he carried the rock in this game, and he averaged 6.5 on those carries. And then as far as receiving goes, sorry about that, guys. There's some crazy stuff going on with the Astros. They cheated to win the 2017 World Series, and it looks like they fired their manager. But anyways, back on track here. Khalif Raymond had that 45-yard reception and the touchdown, so he led the team in receiving yards. Michael Pruitt had a 15-yard catch. Jonnu Smith, 2 catches for 12 yards and a touchdown. And A.J. Brown also had a catch as well. Oh, and Derrick Henry had 2 catches for 7 yards. We went over 200 total yards in this game. That's pretty crazy. Jarrell Casey forced a fumble, and then Jeffrey Simmons recovered a fumble. As far as interceptions go, we have 2 interceptions in the game for the Titans. One by Kenny Vaccaro and one by Kevin Byard, and a bunch of pat downs. Look at all these pat downs. Speaking of pat downs, let's talk a little bit about Adoree Jackson. Boy, oh boy, he did a fantastic job in coverage in this game. He had those 3 pat downs. Yeah, he was a lockdown corner in this game. Props to Adoree Jackson for playing really well in this game. And then defensively, and then tackles-wise on the defense, Logan Ryan led the Titans with 9, and he had a TFL. Kevin Byard had 7. Rashaan Evans had 6, and then Wesley Woodyard and Tremaine Bach, Kevin Vaccaro, and David Long all had 5 tackles. So a lot of good tackling in this game from the Titans. Greg Joseph made all his extra points. Brett Kern averaged 52 yards on his punts. He kept punting into the end zone this game, otherwise he would have had line driving it. It wasn't his best game, but he kept on line driving it in that game. And then there is the kickoff returns. So this is quite a shocker for people, myself included, who thought the Ravens were going to go to the Super Bowl. But ultimately what happened was the Titans ended up winning because they capitalized off the Ravens' mistakes. They forced some interceptions. They had 4th down stops. Each time they scored a touchdown. And that to me was the reason why the Titans won. They played the cleaner game. They capitalized off of mistakes and defensive stops. So huge props to the Titans and good luck to them in the AFC Championship game next week. All right, next up we have the Kansas City Chiefs knocking off the Houston Texans 51-31. They won by 20 points, but you wouldn't know it if you watched the first quarter. Let's just look at the scoring here really quick in each quarter, and then I'll get to how each team got all those points. So, in the first quarter, here's what happened. Houston got off to a hot start. Kansas City was dropping balls and making mistakes, and the Texans capitalized each time. They ended up scoring 3 touchdowns in the first quarter. It was 21-0. And then look at the second quarter. Houston had a field goal, so they were up 24-0. But then Kansas City answered back with 28 points. It was just an onslaught of points from the Kansas City Chiefs. And I will get to how they got all those points. And then in the third quarter, Houston had a touchdown with 13 more points by Kansas City in the third, and they added 10 in the fourth to get 51. So they dropped 50 points on the Texans. Just absolutely bonkers what happened in this game. Let's take a look at all the drives here. Let's look at the scoring drives. So the Texans started off the game with a 54-yard touchdown to Kenny Stills to make it 7-0. And then Kansas City had a blocked punt, which was run back for a touchdown by the Texans. And then some punts traded. And then the Texans ended up scoring another touchdown. They got good field position. They scored quickly, making it 21-0. Another punt by KC, and then a field goal by the Texans. And then the second quarter started with a bang. There was a huge return by Kansas City, which set up a Damian Williams touchdown catch. And then Houston's like, let's go for it on 4th down. Let's be cutesy, let's be tricky. Did not pay off, and guess what? The Chiefs drove down the field quick strike score to make it 14-0. Travis Kelce with a 5-yard touchdown catch from Patrick Mahomes. Only took 3 plays in 23 seconds. And then next kickoff, Texans fumble it. Houston gets it back. Patrick Mahomes throws another touchdown to Travis Kelce, and all of a sudden it's 24-21. Then Houston punts after a 6-play drive, and another touchdown by Kansas City by guess who? Travis Kelce again. My goodness. And the the Chiefs were on top, and from there, that's where it all went downhill for the Texans. They missed a field goal. Another touchdown for Kansas City. Damian Williams with a 1-yard run. And then another touchdown by the Chiefs, 41-24. Houston tried to come back, but ultimately failed. There's another touchdown by Kansas City. Another turnover on downs by the Texans. This is just laughably wild. Laughable how wild this game was. And then Kansas City would add another field goal, and that would do it for the scoring. 51-31. My goodness, and they had a 24-point comeback in one quarter. Did the Chiefs? Just completely crazy. Let's look at the stats. Watson did play well, but he had to throw the ball a bunch because they were behind in the second half. He threw it for 388 yards. Carlos Hyde, 13 carries, 44 yards, 3.4 average. Watson chipped in with 37 yards on the ground on 6 carries. Hopkins was their leading receiver, 9 catches, 118 yards. Will Fuller did have a nice first quarter there, 5 catches, 89 yards overall in the game. And Kenny Stills had a touchdown, and so did Darren Fells in the receiving game. Fumbles-wise, Hopkins and DeAndre Carter both fumbled. Carter ended up losing that fumble. And then, as far as interceptions go, there were none. There were some pat downs, though. And then the leading tacklers for the atrocious Texans defense, Zach Cunningham and Garyon Conley with 5. Garyon Conley had a sack, and I think that was the only sack in the entire game for the Texans. Yes, it was. And then there is the special teams, which was a disaster. My gosh, there was that I mentioned that special teams fumble earlier. Just, jeez, man, that's atrocious. And that blocked field goal or missed field goal, and then going for it on 4th and not getting it twice. So that, yeah, just a disaster on special teams for both teams really. But that's just the Texans. That's what they did. Let's see. Looking at Patrick Mahomes, 23 for 35, 321 yards, 5 touchdowns. He was a beast, and he also led the team in rushing with 53 yards on 7 carries. Damian Williams also helped out with 12 carries of 47 yards and 2 touchdowns. Travis Kelce was a beast. He had 10 catches, 134 yards, 3 touchdowns on 12 targets. And then Sammy Watkins had 2 catches for 76 yards. Tyreek Hill had 3 catches for 41. Tyreek Hill fumbled the kickoff, and then they switched kickoff returners, and that ended up paying off for the Chiefs. We had some pat downs here. Tyrann Mathieu with 2. We had some more there. Leading tackler for Kansas City was Rashard Breeland with 6. Let's see. Rashard Fenton had a sack. 3 sacks for Frank Clark and 3 tackles for loss. He was a beast. And then Darian O'Daniel had a sack as well. Harrison Butker made his only field goal. He did miss an extra point in this game. And then there's punts and kickoff returns. Nicole Hardman had that huge kickoff return, the 58-yarder, which ended up being the spark that Kansas City would need to come back in this game. So my thoughts on this game were Houston let their foot off the gas. Their defense, they made too many mistakes, and they could not cover Travis Kelce. That was ultimately the story. Travis Kelce he just feasted. He had a Thanksgiving feast in that game. It was crazy. Pat Mahomes just had to get him the ball, and that's all they needed to do. And the Chiefs they blew the Texans out of the water, even though they were down 24-0. Still an incredible comeback. Coming back, in a matter of like 3 minutes, they came back in one quarter. So, this is one of the more exciting offensive games I have ever seen. Kansas City's looking really, really hot coming into the AFC Championship game. Good luck to them. I think they're gonna do well. And I don't know if we'll see how they do against the Titans on Sunday. And then the final game of the weekend was my Green Bay Packers taking out the Seattle Seahawks 28-23. So to start off the game, the Packers had a really nice 8-play, 75-yard opening drive, which ended with a Aaron Rodgers touchdown pass to Davante Adams. Then Seattle punted. Green Bay punted. Yeah, there were some punts there for the rest of the quarter. And Seattle finally got on the board with a 45-yard field goal by Jason Myers. And then Aaron Jones had a touchdown run after a 9-play, 62-yard drive. 14-3 Green Bay on top. To start the second quarter, Seattle missed a field goal. The Packers then capitalized off of that missed field goal with another Aaron Jones touchdown run, making it 21-3. And then in the second half, Seattle started to heat it up on offense. They had a 10-play, 69-yard drive, which ended in a 1-yard beast mode touchdown run. That was all that he did well, was have 1-yard touchdown runs in this game. And then the Packers answered right back with another touchdown. Another touchdown in Davante Adams. This one a 40-yarder after a 5-play, 75-yard drive. Huge drive there from Rodgers. And then the Seahawks would answer right back, making it 28-17. Russell Wilson, 7-yard touchdown pass to Tyler Lockett. Score now 28-17. Then the Packers punted. Seattle ended up scoring again, making it even closer, but 28-23. But then they went for two, and Jair Alexander had a huge sack, which prevented the 2-point conversion. That was huge. Then some punts, and that was it. Green Bay could kneel on it after forcing Seattle to punt there on their last drive. Taking a look here at the statistics. Starting with the road Seahawks. Russell Wilson carried the team. He was 21 for 31 on his passes, 277 yards, a touchdown, no INTs. And Russell Wilson also led the Seahawks with 64 yards on the ground. Tyler Lockett led the way in receiving, 9 catches, 136 yards. DK Metcalf, whose name is spelled incorrectly here, there should be an E, but he had 4 catches for 59 yards. Jacob Hollister had... there's another notification. Sorry, guys. Apologies. Jacob Hollister had 5 catches for 47 yards as well. And then we had some pat downs by the Seattle defense. And then the leading tackler for the Seahawks was Trey Flowers with 5. And there is kicking. Jason Myers 1 for 2 on his field goals. He hit both his extra points. Punting, kickoff returns, and punt returns. As for my favorite team, the Green Bay Packers, let's look at their stats. Aaron Rodgers played fairly well in this game. 16 completions, 27 attempts, 243 yards, and 2 touchdown passes for Rodgers. Aaron Jones, 21 yards, 21 carries with 62 yards and 2 touchdowns. Tyler Ervin also chipped in with 25 yards, and Aaron Rodgers had 14 on some scrambles. Leading receiver by far was Davante Adams. He had 8 receptions, 160 yards, and 2 touchdowns on 11 targets. Jimmy Graham also had some huge catches in this game. He had 3 receptions on 49 yards. One of the catches really ultimately iced the game. The last first down that the Packers had, Jimmy Graham had a huge catch there. Allison even had a catch for 11 yards, but then there was a penalty, I believe, after that. So it's good to see Allison contribute. Jamal Williams had a catch for 9 yards as well. And my buddy, Jake Kummerow, not my buddy, but, and Jake Kummerow had a target, but it was a bad throw by Rodgers. Shout out to Kummerow, who went to Whitewater, the school I go to. And then, as far as pat downs go, Adrian Amos and Jair Alexander each had a pat down. And Blake Martinez and Jair Alexander led the team in tackles with 7. As far as sacks go, Kenny Clark had a sack. Za'Darius and Preston Smith had 2 sacks. And then Jair did have that sack. I don't know why it's not showing up on the statistics. On the 2-point conversion, he had a sack. But yeah, good job by the Packers defense here in this game. Crosby made all his extra points. And then there's special teams. So ultimately, I think Aaron Rodgers did just enough in this game, managing the game. He played well. Aaron Jones wasn't ultimately the key player. It was Adams who had a huge game. Um, and also Jimmy Graham having those 2 catches was really nice to see. I think that was ultimately the difference. Rodgers hit a couple of big passes to Adams and a couple of big passes to Graham, and that was all. That was really what the Packers needed to win this game. So, congratulations to the Packers. I'm excited for them, and they're going to face a stiff test going to play the San Francisco 49ers in Santa Clara on Sunday night next week. All right, I'm going to move on now to discussing the AFC and NFC championship games coming up this coming Sunday, January 19th. Let's start with the AFC Championship game, which will feature the 6th-seeded upstart Tennessee Titans taking on the venomous offense in the Kansas City Chiefs. This could be a really interesting game. Tennessee doesn't screw up a lot. In fact, Tennessee hasn't screwed up hardly at all in this playoffs. They capitalize off of other teams' mistakes, and they have the bowling ball running back in Derrick Henry. So you've got that. They've got the solid defense as well. A great cover corner in Adoree Jackson. And they're going to be facing the juggernaut offense in the Kansas City Chiefs. Of course, they got Patrick Mahomes throwing it all over the yard to Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. It's just incredible what the Kansas City offense is able to do. Their defense is also pretty solid. Frank Clark did have 3 sacks and 3 TFLs for them. But ultimately, I just think Kansas City, if they don't make too many mistakes in this game, they're gonna beat Tennessee. I mean, I don't think Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry and company are gonna be able to keep up with that Kansas City offense. But it could be interesting because if they get Kansas City to screw up, Tennessee will make you pay. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this game. I think it'll be an intriguing one. As for the NFC Championship game, we've got the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Green Bay Packers. One of the more interesting storylines I find about this game is that Aaron Rodgers was a fan of the San Francisco 49ers as a kid, but ultimately they did not draft him. They drafted Alex Smith number 1 overall instead in 2005 instead of Aaron Rodgers, who was drafted by the Packers. Now he gets to go return to California to take on his childhood team, but instead playing for the Packers. So I find that storyline pretty intriguing. As far as the Packers go, I think we're gonna have to see more of what we saw from Rodgers against the Seahawks. He's gonna have to make several big throws down the field to Adams, as well as Jimmy Graham, and some other receiver will need to step up for the Packers. I also think Aaron Jones will make more of an impact in this game. I think reason being because they're going to run the ball more in order to slow down the pass rush of San Francisco. Nick Bosa and company there need to be slowed down. As far as San Francisco goes, they're going to need to run the ball as well because I don't believe they can count on Jimmy G in this game. I think the Packers defense will have some tricks up its sleeve to try to stop Jimmy G. But yeah, I feel like this game will be a much different game than the first time these teams faced off. The key for the Niners is for them to run the ball, and I think for the Packers is to slow down the pass rush of the 49ers. Also for them to run the ball, as well as Aaron Rodgers to make some big throws down the field. As far as I think is going to win, I still think the Niners are going to win because of their defense and also because they have George Kittle. I think he'll be able to make some plays for them. So yeah, I'm still taking the Niners, but definitely I would not count the Packers out in this game. I think they have a solid shot at winning this, and I'll be rooting them on. No matter what happens, I'll be rooting on the Packers. So that is going to wrap up episode 6 of this podcast. Hopefully you all enjoyed the games the divisional round games, and I hope you all will watch the championship games as well. With that being said, once again, my name is Nick, and I am signing out.